The next thing we're going to get to right now is our latest player spotlight, which comes with a little bit of news today, Fitz. So fill us in on Keylen Adams.
Keylen Adams was up for a junior day in January. This, of course, was just before the changeover from Taylor Stubblefield to Marques Hagans. So he has not been back with Hagans, but he came out with the top four. It was really interesting. I was talking to Chad Simmons from On Three, one of our national guys this morning, and he said Adams was like kicking around, maybe doing a top 10, a top 8, something like that. I think he had a top 12 prior. So cutting it down a little bit. And then all of a sudden he chopped that thing down to 4. And it's 4 regional schools. It's not like putting it's not putting Alabama on there for flash more than substance. It's Penn State, it's Pitt, Virginia Tech. Right now, I think Penn State is in a good spot. Even though he has not been on campus with Marques Hagans, he does have some sort of relationship stemming from their time at Virginia. And like I said, the relationship there is going to be different than his relationship with Hagans at Penn State. But this is one of the better, if not the best receiver in the region. I think he's right up there with Tyseer Denmark and with a couple of other guys. 6'1", 6'1.5" 175 is what we have him. A good player, inside out player. Kind of, if you were sketching a Penn State player, maybe Keandre Lambert-Smith, although I think Keandre was a little bit more explosive and athletic in the short area quickness field. But Keylen Adams, very productive receiver from Virginia. I think probably Penn State or Virginia Tech right now that would be the top of that list if I had to forecast it. But we're in the process of catching up with him and getting some more thoughts on that. But I know Penn State feels strong about its position coming off of that visit in January.
Yeah, Keylen is welcome to come on the show and talk about it if he's interested. Of course, we'll be getting you all that information at bluewhiteillustrated.com. The thing that I really like about watching his film is I dipped into a little bit of it. I think he's got really good route running potential. And you make a great point about Keandre Lambert-Smith. And the thing that stands out to me is the long strides. A guy like that eats up. You see when he gets into the open field, his legs just go and he breaks away from all of the competition around him. But it's that route running ability with that long stride that I think really makes him an interesting prospect because his frame looks bigger than it is, I think, on film because of that. And his ability to then run routes with that kind of breakaway speed will make him a dynamic guy, even if he doesn't have that short area quickness that we talked about with Lambert-Smith, which I agree with you, in terms of closest thing you could approximate. How this is a dumb question, but I'll ask it anyway. How important is it for Penn State to land him, given what you just talked about, Tyseer Denmark, Keylen Adams, and then kind of the region is I think falls off a little bit after that. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think the region is the important thing here. As you look around, there's just not a ton of guys that really jump out at you, and guys will come onto the scene. Like it's still early in this class, but Denmark is already off to Oregon, of course. But a lot of those guys that will continue to ride. Like I don't see Adams as a guy that's like falling off anytime soon. Like that's kind of where I'm looking at these rankings. On three's got him at 120, right around 24/7's got him at 100. ESPN and Rivals somehow have him at 170, both of them, which I mean for this time, like that's an incredible grouping of like close rankings at this time in the 2024 cycle for a guy. So I think enough people have looked at him like what they've seen and they're going to go for that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a guy when you're trying to establish yourself in certain areas with certain people, read Marques Hagans into that, this is a recruit for him. So we haven't gotten like a firm hold on where the 2024 receiver board is right now. And I will say this, I think I may have said it last episode. These coaches coached during November. They're like into November, into December. Then you've got to lock up your 2023 class in December. You take a little break for the holidays. January, you go back on the road, everything like that, focused on 23 and then starting to focus on 24. So they haven't been in their office to sort of formulate where they want to stand on certain positions for a while. So when we get these questions about where this guy is on the board, I think they're still very fluid and they're still working on that the first couple of weeks of February. So Ryan and I hope to have a better grasp of what we're looking at in terms of these positions, because I mean, we're at the time of year when guys just fall off, like that bad junior film, bad feedback. You went on the road, you didn't like what you saw, things like that. You may have picks in for guys that, just aren't really a legitimate option anymore. You've got all that stuff to be all over the place. So as I just ramble all over the place, and I apologize for that word salad that I just put out there. Yeah, you're continuing to evaluate. You're continuing to ramp yourself up to get these guys in for March visits, to get these guys up for the spring game and things like that. But Adams seems like a guy that's just going to be fairly constant on that board.
Yeah, and I think that that's the important part about Keylen Adams too, is that I think at times in the 23 class we had a similar conversation. There were probably some higher ranked guys in the region, if you want to extend down to North Carolina, that Penn State was clearly interested in. But when it came to like the board in 2023, there were a couple guys that were at the top that were really a part of the conversation the whole time, and Keylen Adams seems to be that guy this year. So that when I ask the dumb question of how important is he in these classes, what you just described is, well, we don't know what the class is yet, but we do have a pretty firm feel on one guy. So being able to have that guy, being in the top 4 for that guy, being in a good position for Keylen Adams is a good sign early for the class of 2024. Anything else you want to add in there about Marques Hagans? We're going to meet him for the first time tomorrow in this particular. Do you want to add extra emphasis to the Virginia angle of this, the Tidewater area, or is that something that I think is properly rated at this point?
I think it's properly rated. The results aren't there, and they haven't been there, and we're going to see if this guy can change it, or this team can change it, because Dex is down there. Sider's in there a little bit. You've got guys that are down there working on it, but this is not stuff that happens in a day. So we'll see what happens. And Keylen Adams is not necessarily a litmus test for the 2024 cycle in that area, but it's a pretty good prospect that you've been high on for a while, and you've had him up to campus a couple of times now. So I think that makes sense in terms of a guy that you look to as a potential trendsetter.
You can always check out our player spotlights, our prospect spotlights, Blue White Illustrated on YouTube. So make sure that you don't miss Michael Van Buren. We talked about Anthony Specca previously. Go check those out on our YouTube channel if you're watching, or if you're listening on the audio version. And if you're watching on YouTube, well, you just got it.